Welcome everybody to the Education Instruction Subcommittee. Today is January 25th, 2022. We're going to call this committee to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Representative Dixie. Here. Representative Griffey. Here. Representative Harris. Here. Chairman Haston. Here. Representative Hicks. Here. Representative McKenzie. Here. Chairman Reagan. Representative Warner. Here. Representative Weaver. Here. Chair Lady Moody. Here. Chairman Sapicki, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First of all, let's go around the room and just quickly introduce yourselves, your name, and what district you're from, and kind of what part of Tennessee. I'm State Representative Scott Sapicki. I serve the 64th District, which is Murray County. Chairman Moody.
Thank you. Hello and good afternoon. And I'm Deborah Moody. I represent District 81, which is the great county of Tipton County. We're north of Memphis and connected to the big mega site with Ford coming in. So come see us while we're still rural.
Terry Lynn.
Hello, greetings. I'm Terry Lynn Weaver. I represent the fabulous folks of the 40th District, which is Smith, where I live, DeKalb, Trousdale, a sliver of Sumner, and part of DeKalb County. I live out by the Center Hill Lake, the well-known secret of recreation. Come out and see us sometime when it's warmer.
Representative Warner.
Good afternoon. I'm Todd Warner. I represent the 92nd District, which consists of all of Marshall County, South and West Lincoln, South Franklin County, and Southern Marion County. And I currently am born and raised in Chapel Hill, northern Marshall County. So, good afternoon. And
Representative Hicks.
Hello, Tim Hicks. I represent the 6th District, part of Washington County in East Tennessee. Good to be here.
Chairman Dixie.
Representative Vincent Dixie. I represent District 54 here and I represent parts of Davidson County. Thank you.
Representative Harris.
Hello, I am Representative Torrey Harris. I represent the 90th House District in Memphis, Tennessee. If there's an area with a hospital or a college in it in Shelby County, more than likely it falls into my district. And so really glad to be here.
Representative McKenzie.
Yes, Sam McKenzie. I represent the 15th District, which is East Knoxville, South Knoxville, downtown, the University of Tennessee, and also Mechanicsville and Beaumont. That has Knoxville College. So the heart of Knoxville.
Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bruce Griffey. I'm from the 75th House District, which is Benton, Henry, and Stewart counties. And for the purposes of this committee, probably the schools are the largest employer in my district. And I try to meet regularly with my directors of schools, and I'm very concerned about education. It's an honor to be on this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Haston.
Kirk Haston, District 72, Chester, Decatur, Perry, and Henderson counties.
And Chairman Reagan, since you showed up tardy today, you can bring up to the end.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies for being late. My name is John Reagan. I represent District 33, which is the majority of Anderson County. I have 3 school districts within my legislative district. Oak Ridge City Schools, which used to be nationally ranked, is still ranked among the top in the state. Clinton City Schools and Anderson County Schools. Anderson County Schools have bragging rights. They have at one time raised their ACT score in a single year by nearly a full point on average. So they've kind of broken the code. They got catching up with their sister institutions in the state. But all of those institutions are historic. Some of you may remember the Clinton City Schools were the first schools in the South to integrate. Contrary to popular opinion, it wasn't Little Rock. And they are also among the top also. Now they are now a K through 8 system rather than K through 12. Anything I need to add, Mr. Chair?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you look up the word brevity in the dictionary, you will not see John Reagan there. I'm going to go around the room here and introduce some people that will be with us the rest of the year. To my right is our attorney, Katie Robertson. To my left is Blake Hassler, our research analyst. Our Madam Clerk is Jan Wright. Our clerk is Alexa Anger. And our Sergeant at Arms is Tony Townsend. He's in the back. And then our archives is Perry Davis at the very back, too. Perry, thanks for doing all this for us. Members, our legislative assistant, Jan, has emailed each one of you a copy of the committee rules. If you have any questions about them, please stop by the office and let us know. We'll try to answer your questions for you. Are there any personal honors or recognitions before we begin? Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I forgot to mention that I have 4 directors of schools in my district, and I forgot to mention their names and what a wonderful job they do. And that's Mark Florence, Leah Watkins, Norma Gerald, and Mike Craig. So they did a great job, and I know they're watching, so thank you all very much.
Anybody else? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to represent I'd like to present my colleagues from ORNL Federal Credit Union. It's a credit union in Representative John Reagan's district, one of the largest ones in that district, but they're here for a conference, so I'd like to recognize them.
Representative Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, I'd like to introduce my intern, Mackenzie Randall. Would you please rise? Let's make her welcome.
Anybody else? Seeing none. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one bill on the agenda today. I'll be turning over the gavel to Chairman Moody as she'll do that while I go present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll give you a minute.
Second.
Thank you. You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, everybody. There is currently an amendment on this bill. We will not be using that amendment. I want to give kudos to the Department of Education and the State Board of Education for working out the issues there. We'll be working off the bill as filed, Madam Chairman. Basically what this does is there's a process right now when our Standards Review Committee for math, for science, for social studies, for language arts, they go ahead and they reach out to many, many groups when we go through a standards review. Currently, we're going through math right now. We just got done with English language arts. We'll be taking up, I think it's social studies next and then science, or maybe just the opposite. But all this bill does is quite simply is there's no process for the State Board of Education on what they're supposed to do in regards to when the Standards Review Committee submits the new standards for approval of the State Board. And so all this does is it creates a process that the State Board of Education, upon receiving the new standards from the Standards Review Committee, can adopt, can reject, or can revise those. Now remember this, it's not the job of the State Board of Education to rewrite the standards. But there's times that when something gets missed from the Standards Review Committee, that this will give the State Board of Education the ability to take a scalpel and either make a change or request a change of the Standards Review Committee to get things in the best form for our students in Tennessee. Madam Chairman, that's all this bill does. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Chairman, for that explanation. And I see Representative McKenzie. We saw your hand first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that explanation. And as stated, I would wholeheartedly endorse this proposal. But my question is, what within the language of this bill would create what you said, a surgical approach? The way I read this is they may revise the bill. That's my first question.
Great question. This is the discussion that the Department of Education had with the State Board of Education on making sure that everybody knew the ground rules going into this. The most important thing I had to do today was to make sure we get on the record that the intent of this bill is not to be painted with a broad brush, it's to be painted with a scalpel. And so moving forward, that the State Board of Education, by this committee's actions, is being put on notice that we expect the relationship between the State Board and the Standards Review Committee, if there's any type of changes or revisions to be made, are done in the very smallest way possible, because a lot of work went in with the Standards Review Committee.
Yes, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my biggest consternation is with the word revise. And the committee is a group of experts. And not to say that experts are perfect, but they are experts within that field. And I would hate to see a committee put in tireless hours of work and effort and get through to a good product, a great product, and it gets revised by a board that probably has a good crosscut, but they're not the experts that's appointed by our governor. So again, I'm actually okay with a rejection, an outright rejection. You Craig, send it back and bring me a new rock. But that revision part, and the way I read it, it does not go back to the recommendations committee for their expert opinion on that revision. That once it's revised, it becomes the standard. So, how would you address that?
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chairman.
So adopt is obviously easy. They accept and move on. Reject means they say no to everything. The revision process is when they send it back for a clerical correction, for a correction on one of the standards that they don't like, or there's some kind of issue there with the way it's going to function. The revision part is not done by the State Board of Education. The revision part is the way the process works is it gets sent back or it gets cleaned up back with the Standards Review Committee because like you did state, they are the experts there.
Yes, Representative.
So is that where can I find that the fact that they'll only make minor revisions, or they'll send it to someone else to be revised, as you just said?
Chairman.
Well, in the bill, the word revise is inherently what it's supposed to do. This is the working relationship that normally the State Board of Education and the Standards Review Committee already has. Currently in code, it only says that they can adopt. That's it, period. They have no other say there. What this does is gives them the latitude. They already have a working relationship that they work around that part of the law where they ask stuff to go back and be tweaked. What we're doing here is we're going to put it in code that allows them to operate in a way that is open and transparent with the word adopt, revise, or reject.
Yes, Representative.
And this is a question to you, Madam Chair. Is there a way for us to hear from the Board of Education? I mean, the Department of Education.
If we'll have to go out of session to do that. Would you like that?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. I'm getting back into the rule thing again. We have to have 24-hour notice. I'm sorry, Representative, I forgot that. Yes.
Is that not at the discretion of the chair? Or is that the hard rule? I was reading that, and I could misunderstand the actual intent of that. But is it at the discretion of the chair, or is it a hard and fast rule?
I'm not the chair right now, so I can't answer the question.
Could we ask legal?
Legal, will you give us a? All right, committee, the legal said we need to go to the clerk's office for that clarification.
Madam Chairman, may I speak
Yes.
here? I'm kind of perplexed about your questioning here, and I'll tell you why. It's because the Department of Education was the one that put the amendment on the bill. And the Department of Education was the one that told me they were okay removing it. So I'm trying to figure out what the issue is here.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From my conversation, that they pulled it based on the fact that that the state board didn't feel with changing the "and" to an to an "a" would dictate a public hearing, but the actual merits of revision, I didn't hear that they endorsed that part of it. So that's why I wanted to talk to them about that aspect of it. That the only thing that the amendment would do was between first and second reading, make it mandatory that you would have a public hearing part.
Yes, Chairman.
Take a 2-minute recess.
Yes, we'll take a 2-minute recess.
We're ready. I appreciate.
All right, we are back in session after our recess. Chairman Sapicki.
So let me shed a little light with a conversation with the Department of Education. So the adopt and reject, everybody looks to be happy. We understand what that means. The issue with revised, the original amendment had language in there that had the department some concern about the magnitude of what could be revised by the State Board of Education. The Department of Education and the State Board of Education will work together on the passing of this bill to work out the language to make sure that it's crystal clear about what role the State Board of Education will have in revision, to make sure that we don't get a wholesale change, that the department and the State Board are going to work together on this. That's why the amendment was withdrawn, because they have already agreed to work together on this to make sure that we get in a position that we'll all be happy with moving forward.
All right, thank you for that explanation. I have Representative Griffey next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chairman, for bringing this bill. I was wondering if you might be able to explain and give some detail on how this accreditation process works with the committee, who makes up these committees, or these Tennessee teachers and professionals that, because we've got tons of very highly capable people in Tennessee and Tennessee educators and have said so for years. Are they involved with these standards committees? And then if the committee works under the state board, who appoints the state board members and who has oversight over them? Please,
Chairman?
thank you.
I'm sorry. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, large question. I'll try to be as brief as I can for you. Let's work it backwards. State Board of Education, currently the 9 members are appointed by the governor. They come through our committees for confirmation, then they serve not only at the pleasure of the governor, but they serve at the pleasure of the General Assembly, who confirms them. The Standards Review Committee goes through some kind of like process, but the main role of the Standards Review Committee is to reach out to educators, administrators, stakeholders, and say, hey, take a look at the standards that we're looking at. Are there any revisions that need to be made? Any additions, any subtractions? And then they put all that information together. You all know Mr. James from the State Board of Education. He's talked many times about there's sometimes upwards of 70 to 80,000 responses that come across the whole state from people making their comments and their opinions on the new standards that are being reviewed. And then that all is put together by the Standards Review Committee, and they go to the State Board of Education for approval. Sometimes there are issues that pop up that get missed. People make clerical errors, but they don't have we have to give them the authority to be able to go back and make some changes to make sure that those all stay within the purview and legal, to make sure we can execute the standards that are there. That was where the Department of Education came in, as they had the same concerns as Representative McKenzie is. We want to make sure that we don't get a rogue board that starts overriding everything in standards. And that's why the department wanted to make sure that they had an agreement with the State Board of Education that going forward they will work together to promulgate the rules and the policy to make sure that this is applied with a scalpel instead of with a brush. And I would venture to say that as members of this Education Committee, if one of the two parties felt the other one was getting out of line, they'd be back before our committee asking us to make the necessary changes to take corrective action really quickly. This is just two boards trying to work together.
Thank you, Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that explanation. It's very informative and helpful. Let me ask you this. Is there any requirement, a certain percentage, or there has to be a certain participation by actual Tennessee educators, either current or retired, that have experience in a Tennessee education to be on the committees that set the standards? Because I just feel like we've got tons of highly capable Tennessee teachers, and they would be probably the subject matter experts to be setting the standards for Tennessee students.
Chairman.
Very good question. Everybody who sits on that board is a teacher at some point in their life, either currently or past. Tennessee, yes, sir. We make sure that the standards that are being put forth by the Standards Review Committee in math, science, social studies, and language arts that are meeting the standards that we want in our school systems to be taught to our children. like we're going through math right now, that those will be promulgated and they'll be sent to the State Board of Education, making sure that both boards have the ability to work together. It's good government.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on my list next, I have Representative Dixie.
I know this is going to come as a surprise, but I'm kind of agreeing with Representative Griffey there. I just want to make sure that our stakeholders are being included in the process. And I guess it's a question for you is, how does this process include or deny the local education agencies and school boards to have an impact on this process? What's their role in this?
Chairman?
Madam Chairman, another great question. You guys have come prepared today. And it's good, it's education. The Standard Review Committee reaches out through surveys, sends what the standards proposals are. They get the administrators, they will get the teachers involved. I know for a fact when there was a group of teachers in Murray County that were looking at some of the math standards together, and they're all grade level appropriate. You're not going to have a math teacher in high school looking at something for fourth grade. They all try to make sure they're grade level appropriate. A lot of it is all sent in through email of requests. They have a very broad and open line. Everything's transparent that can be sent to them. They make sure that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in. And the Standards Review Committee, if you know the process, is not something that is very short term. It's a very long process. And that's the whole thing of having the two boards working together. We must stay on time. Because if we don't stay on time and we get backed up, then it pushes back our standards adoptions and textbook adoptions and curriculums. It starts to back everything up. But at the local level, LEAs are 100% involved in the process.
Yes, Representative Dixie.
So I guess my concern is that I feel like decisions that are going to be made further and further away from students and parents and teachers and principals and communities. And that I think that we should, as the legislature, make sure that we take more time to engage the stakeholders, because as we've seen in the past, we make a lot of decisions that we think is right, but we fail to take the time to actually talk to the boots on the ground, the people that this is going to truly impact. And I just want to make sure that we're not taking the decision-making process away from our LEAs and our local agencies that really, really have to do the work, and we take their input in there. And I think my concerns kind of embody what Representative McKenzie was saying, is that we don't want to make sure that they have this final review process that it just can take it and cut it up, and it looks nothing like the original intent of what was going on. And that's what I feel like that is an opportunity for this to happen with this bill.
Chairman?
Thank you. Very good question. That's one of our jobs, Chairman Dixie, is oversight to make sure that doesn't happen. And I know the Department of Education sitting here, and I know that the Board of Education is watching online right now, that they know that we are watching everything that gets done, not as trying to interject our opinion there, but making sure that everybody plays nice together in the same area. I don't want to get a phone call, neither do you, that, hey, we got a wholesale change in this. That would be very bad for them if they did that. And I'm sure you, along with me, would take issue with that very quickly if the State Board of Education starts to wholesale and unilaterally override the State Standard Review Committee. I'll take personal exception to that myself. This is just to create another tool in the toolbox to make sure that we are efficient and make sure we have two boards that are communicating to each other in real time.
Thank you.
All right, on our list next, we have Representative Warner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chairman. I'm sure you got most of the emails that I've received this week. Is this bill in any form or fashion taking any authority away from the local boards?
Chairman?
No.
Thank you.
All right, next on the list, Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since Representative Dixie mentioned my name, I just wanted to express my gratitude for him for the wisdom he sees and the wealth of knowledge I bring into these decisions, and glad he's going to jump on board where I am. But all kidding aside, honestly, I do agree that, the subject matter experts in Tennessee are Tennessee teachers and administrators and professionals doing this. And if we would listen to them, they'll get our grades up for our students and get our test scores up. So thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Next, I have Chairman Haston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question on the bill.
All right, question's been called. All in favor of House Bill 1676, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Make sure the clerk sees that you have voted that way. And the bill passes on to full. Members, that brings us to a conclusion of our calendar today. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is just a question or a request. At this point, may I make a blanket request that the Department of Education be on the list to speak at our meetings? We are Education Instruction Subcommittee, and I wouldn't see any meeting that will come up that we would not want to have our experts speak to us. So would it be appropriate for me to make that request at this time?
Representative, Chairman, would you like? It's my understanding that at present, the way the subcommittee's rules are written, that requests could be made each week at 24 hours notice. And would you like the chairman of this committee to address this?
Yes, because, when you say 24 hours notice, what I don't want is the situation where if I give it 48 hours, right now I'm giving it, 128, 3,400, whatever. What number of hours do I have to make it? And really, do I have to make this on a weekly basis? In today's time and age, there is a call for transparency. There's a call for a full vetting of this issue. That's why we're here. And I just want to say they need to be available to us. And right now, they're not, or they weren't today. And if we don't think to send the email or go see the clerk or whatever the process is, so I would just like to ask right now if we could have them available for the rest of this session.
Ms. McKenzie, according to rules we operate in, it's very clear from the House that 24-hour notice is required. Now, this bill was put on notice last week. That means you had plenty of opportunity to read the bill and contact the Department of Education and have them answer all your questions before you got in here. And if you didn't have a question that was answered, you had the opportunity 24 hours, just like every member here has, to request that somebody be here to put on the agenda to speak. As chairman, I am happy to honor that request any time it's made, but it would have to be made every week. We can't have a standing order here, because then we're going to get a standing order that everybody's going to want to be privy to that same thing. It's going to create chaos. But the bills are put on notice the week before they're heard here. You have the opportunity to read every bill that's put on notice as a member of this committee. I'm pretty sure our staffers here make sure that the agendas go out to every member of this in plenty of time to make sure to meet the 24-hour rule. So I would just caution you that we get into these non-blanket statements where we're just going to have people that can come up to the microphone anytime we want. The job of this committee is to get the information, to research the information, and make the final decisions here. If you would request somebody to be here, 24-hour notice is not that big a threshold to ask. Representative Griffey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say that if you let one party have, without doing it, it's kind of unfair to other folks that might show up late or whatever. And, so you pointed it out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Dixie, I think you have something to say. You want to say something?
I think we can have this conversation offline.
Well, without anything said, meeting's adjourned.